The sharp chill of October swept through Chicago's Union Station as Maya Ellis hurried across the polished floor, the echo of her heels chasing her through the crowded terminal. Her carry-on rolled behind her, its wheels bumping slightly on the tiled edges, while the strap of her leather tote dug into her shoulder. She was fresh from a whirlwind trip to Detroit where she'd attended a real estate conference, scribbling notes about luxury markets and niche client trends. Every step she took was fueled by ambition, by the picture in her head of the office she would one day own, with her name on the door in gold letters. Announcements thundered above her, last call for the northbound line, and Maya broke into a near jog. She barely squeezed through the train doors before they sealed shut, breathless but victorious, her braids swinging against her back. Collapsing into an empty seat, she exhaled, her chest rising and falling. She tucked her bag closer, comforted by the familiar weight of her laptop inside. That laptop was everything. Her clients' files, her pitch deck for investors, and the beginnings of a business plan she'd poured her entire soul into. Losing it wasn't an option. The train rattled over elevated tracks, offering a glittering view of the skyline she had grown to love since moving here. She thought about the meeting she had scheduled in 2 days, the one that could open doors to the future she'd been fighting for. As the train slowed at her stop, she rose quickly, weaving through commuters. The crowd pressed in tight, voices blending into a hum, bags shifting and bumping as people hurried toward the exits. By the time Maya reached street level, her mind was already racing ahead. She hailed a cab, slid inside, and set her carry-on beside her. The city flashed past the window, neon against the night sky, while she silently rehearsed her pitch. It wasn't until, later, in the stillness of her apartment, that the truth hit her. She had dropped her tote by the couch and was humming softly as she unzipped her carry-on. But instead of her familiar files and neatly packed blouses, her hand brushed against the smooth fabric of a charcoal suit, folded with military precision. She frowned, pulling it out. It wasn't hers. A rich woody fragrance rose from inside the bag, subtle yet commanding. She found the source quickly, a bottle of Tom Ford Oud Wood tucked into a side pocket, the scent filling her apartment in seconds. Her heart stuttered. She rummaged deeper, her fingers brushing the edge of something heavier, more personal, a leather journal, sleek and well-worn, embossed with initials too faded to read. Guilt flickered in her chest, but curiosity was stronger. She opened the front flap, and something slipped free. A business card fell onto the hardwood floor, landing face up. Ethan Blackwell, CEO, Blackwell Innovations. Her stomach flipped as recognition sank in. She had heard the name whispered in every business circle in Chicago. Ethan Blackwell, the self-made tech millionaire who had turned a modest software idea into an empire worth billions. His face had graced the cover of magazines, though his reputation was as much about his guarded privacy as his success. Maya stared at the card, the scent of his cologne lingering in the air. He had her bag somewhere in the city, which meant he had her laptop, her business plan, every fragile hope and blueprint for the future she'd been clutching close for months. Her pulse raced as she sank onto the couch, the card trembling between her fingers. The bag on the floor no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like a door, a dangerous, thrilling door she hadn't meant to open. And now she had no choice but to walk through it. Maya sat on the edge of her couch staring at the business card as though it might burn a hole straight through her hand. The name Ethan Blackwell carried a weight that pressed down on her chest. She had read about him in magazines, heard whispers about his brilliance and his ruthlessness. People said he built his empire with his own hands and a will of iron, that he trusted no one, not even the people closest to him. The thought of her private work, her business plan, her laptop, resting in his possession made her throat tighten. If he had opened that file, if he had seen her projections, her strategies, her dreams, she would never be able to look at him without wondering what he thought. The night pressed against the tall windows of her apartment, the city glittering below like scattered diamonds. She paced the room, the card clenched in her fingers, her phone lying on the table like a loaded weapon. One call would connect her to him. One call would put her on the radar of a man who had the power to make or break reputations with a word. She told herself to wait until morning, to breathe and think clearly, but the pressure in her chest only grew heavier. Her bag was with him, her laptop, her future. With a shaky breath, she picked up the phone and dialed. The first ring echoed like a warning, the second like a dare. By the third, she was ready to hang up. Then a voice filled her ear. Blackwell speaking. The deep timbre of it caught her off guard, calm yet commanding, like someone used to being obeyed without question. Maya swallowed hard. "Mr. Blackwell, my name is Maya Ellis. I believe I have your bag." Silence hummed on the line. She thought the call had dropped until she heard the faint rustle of papers, then the scrape of a chair. "Miss Ellis," he said finally, as if tasting her name on his tongue. "I was wondering when you would call." Her pulse stumbled. "You knew?" "Of course." He chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. "You have something of mine, and I have something of yours." Her stomach tightened. "My laptop is in that bag. It is very important to me." "And my journal is in yours," he replied smoothly. "Equally important to me. Which means we have a problem and a solution at the same time." She gripped the phone tighter, trying to steady her voice. "I can return your bag first thing tomorrow. Your office, I assume." "That will not be necessary," he said immediately. "I am still at the office tonight. Bring it now." Maya froze, glancing at the clock. Almost 10. Most people had gone home hours ago, but not him. Not a man like Ethan Blackwell. Her instinct screamed to wait, but there was a pull in his tone, an authority that left little room for argument. "If I come tonight," she said, forcing steel into her voice, "I want my bag returned in person." "Agreed." His voice lowered to something richer, more dangerous. 37th floor Blackwell Tower on Wacker Drive. Ask for me. Security will let you through." The line clicked dead. He had not asked. He had commanded. Maya stood staring at her reflection in the window. She should have felt fear. Instead, she felt a strange thrill coursing through her veins. She slipped into a burgundy wrap dress, adjusting her braids until they framed her face perfectly. She sprayed the faintest touch of her perfume, the one that made her feel untouchable, and lifted the wrong bag into her hands. Outside, the night air was sharp with October wind. As the cab carried her through the glowing streets toward the heart of the city, Maya's chest tightened with something she could not name. She was walking straight into the world of Ethan Blackwell, a man she had never met yet somehow already felt tangled with, and she could not shake the sense that he had been waiting for her all along. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Maya stepped out onto the 37th floor of Blackwell Tower. The hush of the hallway was immediate, thick with the weight of glass walls, sleek art pieces, and the faint hum of late-night power. Every surface gleamed under recessed lighting, as if even the building itself bowed to the will of the man who owned it. Her heels sank into the plush carpet as she moved forward, her pulse drumming in her ears. At the end of the corridor, a glow spilled from an open glass door. A silhouette stood framed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, broad-shouldered and still as stone, the skyline of Chicago glittering behind him like a crown. For one suspended heartbeat, Maya considered turning around, fleeing with the bag clutched in her hand, but his voice reached her before her feet could move, deep and commanding. "Come in, Miss Ellis." She pushed the door wider and entered. Ethan Blackwell turned to face her, and every article she had ever read about him felt like an understatement. He was taller than she expected, his tailored suit cut sharp to his frame, his jawline precise, his eyes a piercing gray blue that seemed to strip away every wall she had ever built. Those eyes locked on her, assessing, intrigued, and a current of awareness flickered in the air between them. "Your bag, Mr. Blackwell?" she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She set the sleek carry-on at the edge of his massive desk. He stepped forward slowly, his movements deliberate, as though each one was calculated to unsettle. "Please call me Ethan," he replied, his voice carrying a quiet power. "And I believe you have something more personal of mine." She felt her cheeks warm, remembering the leather journal now resting inside the bag. "I did not read it," she said quickly. "Only enough to see your name." One brow arched slightly. Yet you know who I am. Anyone in Chicago's business world knows who you are, she admitted. He studied her, then leaned against the edge of his desk, loosening his tie slightly, an action that made him appear less like a distant executive and more like a predator at rest. And I know who you are too, Maya Ellis. Her chest tightened. How do you know my name? You left more than just numbers on your laptop, he said softly. You left your vision, your plan. I took the liberty of glancing. Her stomach dropped, heat rushing to her face. You went through my files. I was looking for identification. What I found was far more interesting. His gaze sharpened, but not unkind. A young woman ready to challenge an industry that has been stagnant for too long. Bold, risky, innovative. She lifted her chin despite the flush on her skin. My work is mine. It was not meant for you. No, he said quietly, his eyes narrowing as if he were measuring every layer of her resolve. But perhaps it was meant to be found. The silence stretched between them, charged and electric, broken only by the faint sound of city traffic far below. Maya suddenly felt exposed under his gaze, but also seen in a way she had not felt in years. It terrified her. It thrilled her. I would like to discuss your plan in detail, Ethan said finally, his tone leaving little room for refusal. Over dinner, tomorrow night. Her pulse stuttered. Is this business or something else? His lips curved faintly, though his eyes remained unreadable. Perhaps both. Maya straightened her shoulders, gathering the remnants of her control. Just dinner, she said firmly. Nothing more. Of course, he answered smoothly, though the weight of his gaze told her he was not a man used to stopping at limits. As she gathered her bag, their fingers brushed in the exchange, a spark snapping between them so sharp it stole her breath. She stepped back quickly, her heart racing, her mind screamy. No warnings, but her body betraying her with a shiver that felt dangerously close to desire. Good night, Miss Ellis, Ethan said, his voice lower now, velvet-edged. That shade of burgundy suits you perfectly. The words followed her all the way to the elevator, clinging like a promise and a threat, as the doors slid shut and the city lights swallowed her whole. The following evening unfolded like a scene Maya could hardly believe she was living. The driver who came for her was not a rideshare, but a sleek black car, polished to perfection. The man at the wheel introduced himself as Henry and spoke with the calm assurance of someone who had worked for the Blackwell family for years. As the city lights blurred past her window, Maya fought to steady her breathing. She had dressed carefully, choosing an emerald silk dress that balanced sophistication with quiet strength. She told herself again and again this was only dinner, only business, nothing more. But her pulse told another story. The restaurant he chose was one she had only seen in glossy magazines, a place where deals worth millions were whispered over candlelight and vintage wine. Ethan stood waiting at the entrance, his presence as commanding as the tall glass building he had summoned her to the night before. In the soft glow of the evening lights, his eyes found her instantly, holding her in place with the weight of his gaze. You look stunning, he said simply, as though it were fact, not flattery. She answered with a polite thank you, though her voice was softer than she intended. Inside, they were escorted to a private corner, shielded from curious eyes. The table was set with crystal glasses and silver so polished it caught the warm reflection of the chandeliers. Ethan gestured for her to sit, then took the seat opposite, his every movement deliberate, controlled. I took the liberty of arranging a tasting menu, he said, unless you object. I trust your judgment, she replied, before she realized the weight of tea. Ho's words. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his expression. Dangerous words, Miss Ellis. Trust must be earned. The first course arrived, delicate dishes that looked almost too perfect to eat. But Ethan's attention never wavered from her. Tell me about your vision, he said. Not the numbers I saw on your laptop. Tell me why you believe you can build something that others in this city have failed to create. She inhaled slowly, feeling the challenge in his tone. Because people forget luxury is not only about marble floors and glass towers. It is about how you make someone feel when they walk through the door. It is about creating belonging in spaces built to intimidate. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes sharpening. You speak like someone who has lived the opposite of belonging. Her fork froze halfway to her lips. He had read her too easily. A shadow crossed her thoughts of Atlanta, of Julian, and the destruction he had left in her wake. She forced the memory down. Experience has taught me what not to accept, she answered evenly. For a moment silence stretched between them, threaded with something heavier than business. Then Ethan lifted his glass, his voice lower now. And yet here you are, dining with another powerful man. Why take that risk again? Her chest tightened at the question, the intimacy in it disguised as casual curiosity. Because sometimes risks lead to greater rewards, she said softly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat the rest of the restaurant seemed to fall away. There was no sound but the rush of her pulse, no light but the reflection of his stare. Then the spell broke as the waiter arrived with the next course, and Maya gripped her napkin to ground herself. Halfway through the meal, Ethan leaned back, studying her with unsettling focus. My last attempt at trust ended in betrayal, he said. A woman I thought I knew tried to sell my company secrets. Since then, I keep my guard high, yet tonight I find myself lowering it. Maya's heart stumbled. She was not sure if it was a warning or a confession. Perhaps both. She set her glass down carefully. Then maybe you should ask yourself why you are lowering it now. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, not quite a smile. That is exactly what I am asking. The tension between them deepened, equal parts fascination and danger. Maya felt it coil around her like a thread pulling tighter with each word. She had come to return a bag, nothing more. Yet now she was tangled in a web of power, vulnerability, and an attraction she had no defense against. And as Ethan raised his glass once more, the faintest shadow crossed his eyes. It was a warning she did not yet understand, but one that promised the night was only the beginning of a far more dangerous game. The days after the dinner stretched thin and restless for Maya. She could not shake the memory of Ethan's eyes, the weight of his questions, the way the air between them had felt alive with something neither of them dared name. She tried to bury herself in work, rehearsing presentations and reaching out to clients, but every time her phone buzzed, she half expected it to be him. Instead, it was always emails, reminders, small fragments of her ordinary world, until the call that changed everything. She was standing outside a new property listing when her phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. The voice that followed sent a chill through her veins. Maya, it has been too long. Her stomach twisted at the sound. Julian. She turned her back to the street, pressing her hand hard against her chest. You should not be calling me. He laughed, the same smooth, charming sound that once fooled investors and clients alike. You have been busy, I hear, making new connections, dangerous ones. Her throat tightened. What do you want? Only to warn you, Blackwell is not who you think he is. I should know. Men like him take and take until there is nothing left of you. Just ask yourself how he got your number, how he knows so much about you already. She ended the call before he could say more, but his words lingered like poison. That night, a message appeared on a business blog, a whisper dressed as news. Ambitious realtor targets tech tycoon. Her photo taken outside the restaurant accompanied the piece. Her chest burned as she scrolled through the comments, strangers questioning her intentions, painting her as a gold digger before they even knew her name. By morning, 3 clients had canceled appointments. By noon, she was pacing her apartment trying to understand how quickly her reputation was unraveling. She knew exactly who had planted the seeds. Julian. He had always been a master of lies, twisting truth until it strangled. Her phone buzzed again, and this time it was Ethan. His voice was sharp with controlled fury. We need to talk. When she met him at his office that evening, his face was taut, his eyes darker than usual. They are coming after both of us, he said, sliding his tablet across the desk. The screen was filled with headlines speculating about their dinner, about her supposed ambitions, about his judgment. This is not a coincidence. Someone is orchestrating this. Maya's pulse pounded. Julian. She whispered his name as if confessing a sin. My ex. He has reason to destroy me, and by extension you. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then he has made the mistake of targeting the wrong woman, and the wrong man. She shook her head, the weight of old wounds pressing heavy. You don't understand what he is capable of. He knows how to twist everything, how to make me look like the villain. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low, dangerous. Let him try, but do not make the mistake of running from me. If you do, he wins. The air between them thrummed with something fierce and unspoken. May felt the pull of his conviction, the dangerous promise in his words. She had walked into his office once by accident. Now she was standing in the middle of a storm she had not chosen but could no longer escape. Outside the glass walls of the tower, the city glittered as though nothing had changed. But inside, Maya knew the truth. The game had begun, and every move from this moment would decide not only her career, but her heart. The storm broke faster than Maya could have imagined. By dawn, her face was plastered across news sites, each headline sharper than the last. Millionaire under spell of ambitious realtor. Blackwell empire at risk over secret dinners. The photos were invasive. Shots of her leaving the restaurant, her emerald dress shimmering beneath the flash of cameras she had never seen. The story spread like wildfire, and with each refresh of her screen, the lies grew larger, heavier, impossible to outrun. Her phone would not stop buzzing. Clients pulled out of deals with apologetic voices that were edged with suspicion. Friends texted with cautious sympathy. Her assistant canceled 2 appointments before lunch, citing bad timing and too much noise. Every word sliced into Maya like a blade. Years of rebuilding her life after Julian's betrayal were unraveling in a matter of hours. By the time she reached Ethan's office, her pulse was a drumbeat of dread. Security ushered her through quickly, eyes following her as if she carried scandal on her skin. Ethan stood at the window when she entered, his reflection fractured against the skyline. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried the weight of steel. The board is meeting tonight. They want explanations. She froze. You mean because of me? He turned then, his gaze locking onto hers. Because of the story. They think I am distracted, vulnerable. They think you are a liability. Her chest tightened with shame. I should walk away before this destroys everything you have built. The words barely left her mouth before us. Ethan was across the room. He seized her hands, holding them tight, his voice low but fierce. Do not say that. Do not give him the satisfaction. Maya blinked through the blur of her own fear. He, Julian. Ethan's jaw flexed, anger sharpening his features. This reeks of him. A man with nothing left will try to burn the world to ashes. The sound of his name on Ethan's lips was both terrifying and oddly grounding. She could feel his anger on her behalf, his fury at being manipulated. Yet beneath that was something deeper, a thread of vulnerability he had not shown before. She shook her head, her voice breaking. You do not know what he did to me. The lies, the control, the way he made me doubt everything I was. Ethan's grip tightened, and yet here you are, standing in front of me, refusing to bow to him. That tells me exactly what kind of woman you are. The air between them burned with a mix of pain and electricity. Maya wanted to believe him, wanted to draw strength from his certainty, but the noise outside their glass tower felt too loud. She pulled her hands free, stepping back as tears stung her eyes. If I stay, you lose your empire. If I leave, maybe you have a chance to keep it. For the first time, Ethan's composure cracked, his voice roughened, almost pleading. Do not make that choice for me. This is not just business anymore. The confession hung in the silence, heavy and undeniable. Maya's heart thudded painfully in her chest. The line between business and desire had blurred long before either of them admitted it. But love felt like a dangerous luxury when the world was already sharpening its knives. As she turned toward the door, his voice stopped her. If you walk away now, you will hand Julian exactly what he wants. He destroys you. He breaks me. She paused, trembling, torn between fear and longing, between the ruin of her past and the fragile promise of something new. Outside the windows, thunder rumbled across the horizon, as if the city itself was holding its breath. And Maya knew this was no longer just a scandal. It was war. The rain came down in sheets the morning Maya returned to her office, each drop beating against the glass like a reminder of everything she was about to lose. 3 more clients had canceled before noon, leaving her schedule barren. She sat behind her desk, staring at the unopened laptop in front of her. Opening it meant facing the articles, the comments, the whispers that painted her as nothing more than a woman clawing her way up through scandal. Her assistant appeared at the door, nervous, her voice hushed. "There is someone here to see you." She would not give her name, only said it was important. Before Maya could reply, the figure swept into the room, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with eyes sharp as cut glass. Maya recognized her instantly. Eleanor Blackwell. The mother of Ethan Blackwell carried herself with quiet power. She took a seat without waiting to be offered, crossing her legs with elegant precision. "You have caused quite the storm, Miss Ellis." Maya's throat tightened. "If you came to warn me away, I have already made my choice." Eleanor studied her for a long moment. "I did not come to warn you away. I came to ask if you are strong enough to stay." The words caught Maya off guard. "I do not understand." "My son is brilliant," Eleanor said, her tone calm but edged with something fierce. "But brilliance is blinding. He sees markets, patterns, empires, but not always the knives in the shadows. The last woman he trusted nearly destroyed him, and now he stands before the board, defending you with the same fire he once used to build his company." Maya shook her head, shame and longing colliding. "That is exactly why I should go. I am tearing his world apart." Eleanor leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "My husband was like Ethan, brilliant, proud, untouchable until the day he trusted the wrong ally, and it cost him his health, his legacy. I will not watch my Sauwas fall the same way." She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the desk. "I had my people dig." Maya hesitated before opening it. Inside were police reports, court filings, statements from other women. Each page detailed the manipulation and abuse of Julian Carter, her ex, the man who had once held her life in his fist. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages, the weight of old scars resurfacing. Eleanor's voice softened, but only slightly. "Julian is the cancer here, not you. The media believes his story because you have not told your own. The question is, are you willing to fight for yourself and for Ethan?" Maya closed the folder, her heart pounding with a mixture of rage and clarity. For months, she had let fear dictate her steps. Fear of repeating mistakes, fear of scandal, fear of being broken again. But fear had not saved her before, and it would not save her now. She lifted her chin. "What do you suggest?" Eleanor's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Tomorrow the board will vote on whether Ethan should step down. Julian will not stop feeding the fire until he is ruined. So you give the fire something else to burn. You set a trap." The rain hammered harder against the glass, but Maya's chest felt suddenly lighter, as if the storm inside her had finally found direction. She looked at the folder again, at the evidence that could expose Julian's lies, and for the first time in years, she did not feel powerless. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do not thank me," Eleanor said as she rose gracefully. "Prove to me that you are not just another storm in my son's life. Prove that you are the one who can stand with him when the fire rises higher." When the door closed behind her, Maya pressed her hands flat against the desk, her pulse racing. The choice was no longer about survival, it was about war, and she was ready to fight. The night air outside the peninsula hot. Elle was thick with anticipation when Maya stepped out of the cab. The white suit she wore shimmered faintly beneath the streetlights, chosen not for beauty, but for power. Inside her clutch, hidden among lipstick and keys, was the tiny microphone Sasha had clipped there earlier. Her best friend's voice echoed in her mind. "Stay calm. Let him talk. Let him incriminate himself." The hotel lobby was alive with murmurs and piano music, but Maya heard none of it as she crossed the marble floor toward the bar. Julian was waiting in a corner booth, his smile sharp, his eyes glittering like a predator who believed the trap was his to spring. "You always did know how to make an entrance," he drawled as she approached. Maya slid into the seat across from him, every muscle in her body taut. Let's skip the nostalgia. Why are you doing this? Julian leaned back, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. I told you already. Blackwell is dangerous. I'm saving you from him. Her eyes hardened. No, you're saving yourself. You're jealous that someone else sees me as more than a pawn. His smile slipped, the mask faltering for just a second. Then he leaned forward, lowering his voice. He is not what you think. And you, Maya, you have always been easy to manipulate when someone dangles power in front of you. Her stomach twisted, but she held her ground. You should be careful what you admit, Julian. People are listening. He chuckled. Let them listen. What will they hear? That I know his board is about to turn against him. That I know when his empire falls, I will be standing there ready to claim the pieces. Maya's pulse spiked. She needed him to say more, to expose himself fully. She kept her tone even. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Julian's eyes gleamed with arrogance. Let's just say I have friends in places that matter, competitors who would pay handsomely for the right secrets. If Ethan Blackwell thought his ex-fiancée betrayed him, wait until he realizes who's really holding the knife this time. The microphone caught every word, every smug inflection. Maya's fingers tightened around her glass to keep from shaking. She leaned in, her voice steady as steel. You think you can ruin him the way you ruined me? Julian's smile turned cruel. You were practice. He is the prize. Before Maya could respond, a shadow fell across their table. Ethan stood there, his eyes cold fire, his presence filling the room with silent power. That's enough, he said, his voice low and lethal. Julian's smirk faltered. What is this? Maya rose, her chin high, her fear buried beneath resolve. This is me taking my life back. From the corner of the bar, federal agents stepped forward, flashing badges. The microphone in her clutch had carried everything to waiting ears. Julian froze, fury twisting his features as he realized the trap had been sprung. You think this changes anything? He hissed as the agents closed in. This is only the beginning. Security moved to escort him out, but Ethan stepped closer, his voice ablade. Touch her again, and the fraud charges will be the least of your worries. Julian's eyes burned with hatred as he was dragged away, but for the first time in years, Maya did not feel like his victim. She felt free. Her knees trembled as adrenaline drained from her body. Ethan caught her hands, steadying her, his voice softer now. You were brilliant. She looked into his eyes and saw not just power but pride, a rare vulnerability he showed only to her. The storm outside no longer mattered. What mattered was the fire between them, a fire that no scandal or lie could extinguish. But as they left the hotel together, Maya knew the war was not finished. Julian was gone, but shadows still lingered. Enemies moved unseen, waiting for their chance. And somewhere in that darkness, a new blade was being sharpened. The gala shimmered with gold light and champagne laughter, a celebration of Chicago's elite dressed in gowns that spar, clad like stars and tuxedos cut from shadow. Maya entered on Ethan's arm, her silver gown flowing with every step, her presence drawing glances and whispers. Some looked at her with admiration, others with suspicion. But tonight she walked tall, her chin high, no longer the woman afraid of shadows. Ethan's hand rested lightly against her back, a quiet promise of protection, though his eyes scanned the room with the vigilance of a man who knew enemies rarely stayed buried. They moved through the crowd like a storm contained in glass, pausing to greet board members, investors, faces that smiled while hiding knives behind their teeth. Maya was halfway through a polite exchange when she felt it, the sharp edge of a gaze burning into her. She turned and froze. Across the room, a woman stood near the grand staircase, radiant in a crimson gown that clung to her like fire. Nadia, Ethan's former fiancée, the woman who had once nearly destroyed his empire by selling company secrets. Her beauty was undeniable, her poise calculated, but her eyes were what struck Maya most. They glowed with a venomous satisfaction, like a predator stepping back into familiar territory. Ethan's body tensed beside her. He followed Maya's gaze, his jaw hardening. "Stay close," he murmured, but Maya caught the flicker of pain he tried to hide. The evening pressed on, music swelling as models paraded designs for charity, glasses clinking as donors pledged fortunes. Yet beneath the glitter, the tension grew. Maya watched Nadia move gracefully through the crowd, stopping to whisper in the ears of men who mattered, sliding a flash of silver from her clutch and slipping it back just as quickly. When Nadia's gaze finally landed on her, it was not with curiosity, but challenge. A silent dare. Maya excused herself from a conversation and drifted toward the side corridor, her pulse racing. She knew Ethan would notice, would follow, but something in her told her this was her moment. In the shadow of the marble hallway, Nadia appeared as if summoned. "You must be Maya Ellis," she said, her voice smooth as silk over broken glass. "The woman who thinks she can tame Ethan Blackwell." Maya steadied her breath. "I am the woman who refuses to fear him, or you." Nadia's smile curved, sharp and cold. Brave words. Do you know how quickly his loyalty shifts? How easily trust becomes a weapon in his hands? He told me once he could never be deceived again, and yet here you are. Maya's chest tightened, but she refused to flinch. "If you came here to scare me, you'll have to try harder." Nadia leaned closer, her perfume heavy, suffocating. "I did not come to scare you. I came to warn you. Ethan's empire is about to crumble. When it does, he will not fall alone. He will drag you with him." Before Maya could respond, the lights flickered. A murmur rippled through the ballroom, uneasy and sharp. Then came the sound that silenced every laugh, every whisper. A gunshot. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed, glasses shattered, the orchestra cut off mid-note. Ethan was at Maya's side in an instant, pulling her close, his body a shield. Security swarmed, shouting commands, while another shot rang out from somewhere above. Through the panic, Maya saw Nadia retreat into the crowd, her crimson gown flashing like a warning flame. Maya's blood ran cold. This was no coincidence. Nadia had not come for words alone. She had come to finish what she started years ago. Ethan's voice was urgent at her ear. "We need to move now." But even as he guided her toward the exit, Maya's mind was racing. The gunman was a distraction. The real weapon was still hidden, waiting to be revealed. And if they did not uncover it, the night would end, not in scandal, but in blood and ruin. The ballroom was a storm of panic as the last echo of the gunshot dissolved into screams and chaos. Security shouted for order while chandeliers rattled above like nervous stars. Ethan shielded Maya with his body, his arm locked around her as if letting go meant losing everything. They pushed through terrified guests toward a side exit, but Maya's eyes caught a flash of crimson, vanishing into the stairwell. "Nadia." It was too deliberate to be chance. Maya tugged Ethan's arm, but his grip only tightened. "We have to get you out," he insisted, his voice sharp with command. But Maya shook her head, her heart pounding. No, she was behind this. She wanted us cornered. If we run blind, we give her what she wants. For a beat, their eyes clashed in the dim light. Ethan's were storm gray, filled with the fear of a man who had already lost too much. Maya's burned with something fiercer. She would not be a victim of someone else's games again. Before Ethan could argue, the ballroom doors slammed shut with a metallic clang. The lights cut out, plunging the glittering gala into darkness. Gasps filled the air. Then the massive screens lining the walls flickered alive one by one, showing not the charity event but images of confidential documents, graphs, emails, all branded with the Blackwell Innovations logo. Maya's breath caught. This was the real strike, not the bullets, not the chaos. It was sabotage in the most public way possible. Years of Ethan's guarded empire spilled across the screens for every guest to see. Ethan's face was a mask of fury and disbelief. "No one has these files," he whispered, "unless they came from inside." Then, a cold voice sliced through the darkness, magnified by hidden speakers. "History repeats Ethan. Did you really think you could build something untouchable?" It was Nadia. Her voice carried like venom. She spoke of corruption, of betrayal, of secrets Ethan had buried to protect his company and his family. Each word was a dagger meant to sever trust in him forever. Maya reached for his hand, grounding him as gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests backed away, their admiration souring into suspicion. It was working. Nadia was dismantling him piece by piece. Enough, Ethan's voice thundered in the dark. Step out and face me. A spotlight clicked on in the balcony above, revealing Nadia, her crimson gown glowing like spilled blood, her smile sharp with triumph. This is only the beginning, she said. When your empire collapses, you'll finally understand what it feels like to lose everything. Maya's pulse roared in her ears, but as she watched Nadia, she noticed something odd, the slight tremor in her hand, the way her eyes darted not just to Ethan, but to Maya. This wasn't just vengeance, it was personal. Maya lifted her chin, her voice ringing clear. You're wrong, Nadia. Ethan already knows what it's like to lose everything. But unlike you, he built again, stronger, and he didn't do it alone. Her words cut through the tension like glass shattering. Ethan's eyes widened, a storm breaking into something softer, as if her defiance lit a flame he thought long dead. Nadia laughed, but the sound cracked brittle and desperate. Do you think standing beside him will save you? He will destroy you too. No, Maya said firmly. Together, we'll destroy you. At that moment, security surged onto the balcony, disarming Nadia before she could react. Her device fell to the ground, shattering as the screens blinked out. In the silence that followed, the spell of her words dissolved. Guests exhaled relief, though whispers lingered, doubt still clinging like smoke. Ethan turned to Maya, his hands gripping her shoulders. You didn't have to put yourself in the crossfire, he said, his voice raw. Yes, I did, she whispered. Because you are worth fighting for. For a long moment, the chaos around them faded until there was only the two of them standing amid shattered trust and flickering light. Ethan's expression shifted, his usual armor gone. I should have told you everything sooner. About Nadia, about my father, about the shadows I keep hidden. Then tell me now, Maya urged. No more secrets. He drew in a ragged breath. My father's fall wasn't an accident. Nadia's family had a hand in it. I've carried the guilt of not proving it all these years. I thought if I kept everyone at a distance, I could protect what I built. But I was wrong. What I need is you. Her heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice, the fierce man stripped bare. She cupped his face, steadying him. Then you have me. No more running. The night ended with police escorts and flashing cameras. But through it all, Ethan held Maya's hand, never letting go. The scandal would take weeks to untangle the whispers, months to silence, but something far stronger had been forged in fire. Weeks later, on the rooftop of Ethan's lake house, the city glowing behind them, he dropped to one knee, the reflection of stars in his storm-gray eyes. From the moment you walked into my office with the wrong bag, I knew my life would never be the same. Will you build a future with me? Maya's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. Yes, Ethan Blackwell. Always. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she realized that love wasn't about avoiding scars or hiding from storms. It was about standing in the fire together, daring the world to try and break you. And for the first time, she knew with absolute certainty that they were unbreakable.